In my last video, we talked about The Black Coat's Daughter, which I thought was a poignant and subversive twist on the demonic possession subgenre that doesn't rely on the tired formula that's gone unchanged since The Exorcist in 1973. There is no subgenre in horror I find more fatiguing than possession exorcist-style films, because for the most part, it is the same thing over and over again. An innocent person becomes psychotic, everyone thinks it's mental illness, a priest with a crisis of faith explains the taboo nature of exorcisms, which in recent memory seems to be a Russell Crowe thing, and the next thing you know it, the possessed is strapped down while a demonic rave ensues. It is a tried and true format that's proven to work with general audiences despite the unquestionable repetition and predictability. However, despite my frustrations, I still find myself constantly coming back to it, hoping for something to surprise me and get under my skin, because I find the horror itself generally pretty provocative. Over the years, I've covered many films that, at the very least, had their own little touches of innovation, like The Taking of Deborah Logan, The Last Exorcism, When Evil Lurks, Fallen, The Wailing, but to contrast my love for The Black Coat's Daughter and for originality and ambition in general, I think this might be the perfect time to discuss a possession movie I've mentioned numerous times before that I genuinely loathe. In the last 2 years, I have covered 2 movies by horror director William Brent Bell: The Boy, a bizarre twist on the haunted doll format, and Stay Alive, a video game version of The Ring where if you die in the game, you die for real. In those videos, I describe Bell as a bit of a curious fella because all his films have good ideas on paper, but in execution leave a lot to be desired. And this film is particularly insulting, not just because it is the most aggressively surface-level exorcist film out there, but it doesn't even have a fucking ending! I swear to God, it literally cuts to black just as the plot finally begins to go somewhere and says to go to this now defunct website for more information. A wise man once told me you should use your platform for good and not dwell on the negatives, because it will just make you a miserable person spreading further misery. But it's too late for that. Sometimes you just have really sore knees, you're stressed to the absolute tits, and you just want to take it out on something. So fuck it. This is The Devil Inside. Not only the worst demonic possession film I've seen, but also probably one of the worst found footage films I've seen. Worse than The Pyramid, you ask? There's a chance. Now, just before we dive into despair, this video is sponsored by Odoo. I like to work quickly and precisely without compromising quality, but when you're running a channel or business like mine, it's overwhelming how many moving pieces need to be accounted for, and I'll admit my management style is pure chaos. Thankfully, Odoo has come to the rescue as the one and all management software to make the day-to-day running of your business, brand, side hustle, or personal projects a smoother, stress-free operation. You can choose from a range of applications, with your first application being completely free for life with unlimited support and hosting, and if you want to expand into other applications, you can simply switch to an affordable subscription plan and access everything Odoo has to offer. I highly recommend their website creation app because I'm currently developing a website for my channel and brand, and Odoo offers a free personalized domain name for the first year. Using an accessible, easy to navigate interface, I can customize every fine detail of my website to make it personal to me, including fonts, animations, and unique themes that look both stylish and professional. I can embed my own videos and images, use Odoo's royalty-free image database, and generative AI is also available to clean up my writing and spark ideas. I've honestly spent many hours tweaking my website. It's been a lot of fun because it's just so easy to use and produces amazing results. Follow my link in the description to start your own free website with unlimited support today and check out everything Odoo has to offer so you can get back to focusing on the important things that matter. Anyway, The Devil Inside tells the story of Isabella Rossi, who along with a filmmaker called Michael decide to shoot a documentary investigating the disturbing circumstances surrounding her mother Maria, who 20 years prior brutally murdered 3 people and was sentenced to a psychiatric hospital in Italy of all places. From there, they travel to Rome and seek the assistance of 2 underground priests who perform exorcisms off the books in the hopes of exorcising Maria and finally bringing her back to reality. Taken as a whole, it's an intriguing premise with some promising emotional beats, like Isabella's estranged relationship with her manic mother, and the tension and moral implications surrounding the 2 priests who are arguably in over their head, performing exorcisms without the permission of the church. However, as you could probably tell from the tone of this video, none of these ideas actually play out, when most of the film is hyperfixated on vague, vapid mental illness discussions, and trying to force the illusion that maybe Maria isn't possessed possessed, and she's just deeply disturbed and the whole exorcism industry is one big grift. But nope, it's going exactly where you think it's going, until the movie decides to abruptly end just as something interesting finally happens. I'll not give it away just yet, but when the demonic stuff begins to reveal itself, there is a genuinely sinister idea in here, involving a bit more than your average demon, but as I'll keep repeating, the movie ends at what feels like only the halfway point. In an interview with Screen Rant, Bell did attempt to justify it as an attempt at being realistic because, to quote, sometimes real life doesn't follow a perfect structure, which to that I say, what a weak argument. Yes, found footage films do this all the time, but to be honest, most of them are also just as shit at it. Obviously, the Blair Witch Project famously pioneered the abrupt ending trope in found footage films, but that was a powerful payoff for the dread it was building the entire film. In its time, it was unique and thoughtful and felt fitting, whereas 13 years later, your movie just kinda ends. But look, I'm way ahead of myself. Let's go through the movie first to get us to this frustration. The film opens incredibly strong with a brooding and surprisingly graphic reveal of the crime scene, where on October 30th, 1989, Maria confesses her murders to a 911 operator before police detail the butcherings, bludgeonings, and strangulation of 2 priests and a nun at what we can presume to be a botched exorcism. The 80s analog aesthetic, the provocative staging of the bodies, and just purely the shocking and vicious nature of the slayings sets up a palpably dangerous threat, ending with the police being attacked by Maria hiding in a crawl space. Unfortunately, the plot then begins as we're jarringly bombarded with background information without a moment to take any of it in, as though it's on a deadline to make the cutoff for its bare minimum theatrical runtime. For a film that's only 75 minutes long with 8 extra minutes of credits, it is horribly inefficient with its pacing. The setup is just shy of 10 minutes long, but for how quickly it goes through various interviews detailing Maria's behavior from a gentle, kind mother to abnormal and erratic, there's so little to actually learn about her, besides her being labelled as having multiple personality disorder to explain her actions, on top of other vague psychology buzzwords that simply serve to say, hey, nobody believes it's a demon, she just went crazy. The one compelling detail is that when Maria was eventually found not guilty by reason of insanity, several months later she was transferred to a facility in Rome, which Isabella believes is related to the botched exorcism after her dad explained what happened to Maria before he mysteriously died 3 days later. Now, initially, I assumed there would be something to her father's death to suggest there's maybe a family curse or something to that effect, given it's not only so specific in highlighting that detail, but Isabella even ponders over the possibility of Maria's condition being hereditary. However, while the ending does pay off her pondering as technically foreshadowing, the crux of the film is that it doesn't prioritize Isabella's family as a strong enough vocal point to maintain any emotional stake worth investing in. Instead, when they arrive in Rome, the focus shifts almost entirely to the 2 priests and their secret exorcism operation unsanctioned by the Vatican. The first thing Isabella and Michael do is observe a class being taught exorcisms, which opens the floor to completely diluted debates around the authenticity of exorcisms and the rationalizations to explain them through science. None of it is insightful or intellectually handled. You would get just as much out of having a conversation with your mates at the pub than listening to these priests and theologians who supposedly devote their lives to the study and practice of spirituality. In respect to people who might not have seen films like this before, I could forgive this as a way to contextualize the general conflict and controversy around exorcisms, but holy hell does this movie regurgitate the exact same talking points constantly when the 2 priests finally take center stage. After this, we finally get to meet Maria in the institution, where it reestablishes her dangerous, violent tendencies to create a legitimate feeling of dread when Isabella gets intimate with Maria, as you're constantly on edge thinking this bitch is going to bite at any moment. It's solid filmmaking all round. There's a quiet ambience and tight framing to reinforce the unease, and and I like that Isabella struggles to get anything emotionally out of her tortured mother, who's clearly not there. Isabella makes a point that having no parents makes her feel empty, and if that's the feeling this scene is going for, I think it actually works. I felt the same way for the most part, but gradually that emptiness became shallowness when this is pretty much where the relationship ends. It got me thinking a lot of The Taking of Deborah Logan and how impactful that film was by comparison, where it uses possession as a metaphor for dementia and how it deteriorates the humanity within you while devastating those around you. If the focus of the film was truly on this mother-daughter bond that was lost due to devastating circumstances, I would be more on board with it. But from here, our focus shifts to Father David Kern and Father Ben Rawlings, two initially interesting characters who, like Maria and Isabella, suffer from a total lack of development to make me care about them. Both men are established with fairly distinct personalities. David is an idealist who sees his faith as an opportunity to help those less fortunate, while Ben followed in his father's footsteps and became an ordained exorcist who interestingly believes he's seen the devil more than God. I really like the haunting connotation in this line. Ben seems traumatized and existentially caught up in trying to understand the meaning to all the evil he's experienced. He's still hopeful and accepting of the idea that his suffering is by God's design, but later on there's a very ambiguous detail about his past that I think insinuates he either killed his uncle or botched his exorcism, but it's a mystery I appreciate goes unanswered. Much of our time spent with the pair is honestly not that much different from Specs and Tucker from the Insidious series, minus the humor and interesting personalities. They basically talk about their exorcism equipment and the bureaucracy of the church, with Ben showing a particular disillusionment towards their antiquated traditions. But the most egregious issue I have with it is that it never delves into any specifics. All it feels like is hot air without any meaningful output, much like the debates surrounding possession and mental illness. Sometimes it feels like when a friend passionately tells you about something they're interested in, but you're bored as shit and all you do is nod your head anyway out of politeness. It's almost like it's afraid to have an opinion. Why set up these two priests as defying the church and not solidify the purpose of why they're doing it? It ultimately seems to come down to we're doing it because the church is all red tape and paperwork. But that's incredibly understandable when there are so many ethical and legal considerations to be brought up before brute forcing an exorcism. There's a lot of ignorance that goes unaddressed. I assumed it was going to go down the road of these two being in way over their heads, which is kind of what happens when they perform an exorcism on Maria, but it never truly commits nor gives clarity or focus to their potential naive and overzealous actions. The fact I'm doing a lot of busy work to make it seem like there's a tangible point to it isn't a good indicator of the quality of its storytelling or direction. What makes exorcism films interesting is that there's a clear mythology, human struggles and conflicts, you know, things that make the whole your mother sucks cocks and hell stuff feel like it's mocking our attempts at significance when evil is just evil. The best scene is when the priests invite Isabella and Michael to witness an exorcism firsthand to prove it's real, and it's just an excellent, uncomfortable piece of body horror. The actress playing the possessed is a professional contortionist, so all the twists and turns you see are genuine, and the body-cracking sound design with no score just brilliantly punctuates the moment. But before long, we just go back to the same boring stuff before they finally perform an exorcism on Maria, which they completely botch, thus making matters a hell of a lot worse. The movie gets notably choppy at this point because it wants to reveal Maria's circumstances without over-explaining it, but because of the way the movie soon ends, it's another case of being too vague as opposed to ambiguous. From my perspective, when a story is delivered with effective ambiguity, usually it gives you enough information to theorize and interpret what you see, but when it's simply vague, you're only left with a general idea without anything to enrich or enhance how you view the story. Basically, Ben discovers after analyzing the footage of Maria's exorcism that she speaks with 4 voices, indicating she's possessed by multiple demons, not just one, and as a result of botching the exorcism, they may have unleashed those demons to possess the crew. Now, in premise, that is a really neat twist, but it doesn't explore it any further. In fact, we never see what happens to Maria going forward, and it sort of seems to suggest only one demon takes control over each of them at a time. The group then grows increasingly frustrated with Ben accusing the church of covering things up, while Maria is solely concerned with her mother, and then there's David, who's worried about being excommunicated from the church, and Michael just feels left out. Soon after, David is called upon to perform a baptism, and ends up proving he's possessed when attempting to drown a baby in holy water, before later attempting to fight the demon inside, only to shoot himself when he realizes he cannot defeat it. His death causes the demon to escape and possess Isabella under the geist of a seizure, but as they rush her to hospital, the possession intensifies, leading Ben to seek guidance from a superior priest, but before they can get to him, Michael is then possessed during their travels and crashes the car, killing both him and Ben, while Isabella's body disappears. And really, that's it. That's the movie. The title card tells us to go to therossifiles.com for more information, and you know what? I could give this film some credit if this was an ambitious ARG where the ending was on the website and there would be details to explain what happened, but nope, there is fuck all on this website. As I said in the beginning, the website is now defunct, but I used the Wayback Machine to have a look at it for myself, and it's really just similar stuff to what the Blair Witch Project did, but with far less effort. I mean, it clearly proved successful given this was a $1 million budget film that went on to gross $100 million at the box office, and there are numerous comments on the website of people debating whether it's real or not, but in terms of actual plot and content, there are no extra insights, no clues, no lore. It's just stuff we already know. Does it supplement our understanding of exorcisms in the Vatican? No, it's just YouTube videos and wiki articles. I will humor giving it the benefit of the doubt to say that maybe there was more on this website before it was taken down, but that doesn't change the fact that the movie still doesn't have an ending regardless of how realistic or ambiguous or provocative it aims to be. In an interview with Bloody Disgusting, Bell had the audacity to call it a bold choice that had never been done before, and it would have been that had there been any substance on the website at all. Apparently it was Paramount's idea, and again, I understand the intent was to be realistic, and I know regardless of how they did it, it was always going to be polarizing, but ending it on a car crash feels incredibly low effort when you consider how simple yet vividly memorable the Blair Witch Project's ending was. I feel that in order to do an abrupt ending right in horror, there needs to be that holy shit sucker punch element to it, and this is a whimper nowhere even close to a bang. It doesn't feel naturally abrupt. It just feels, well, incomplete. And there we have it, The Devil Inside. I just needed a really good rant, and to be honest, that made me feel just a little bit better. Hopefully next time we'll get back to some niceness, but until then, stay safe, stay away from the Vatican, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.